Elena's hands won't stop shaking as she stands in the corner of Luca Moretti's private conference room, a wine bottle clutched like a lifeline. She shouldn't be here. She should be invisible. Just another maid in a black uniform. Someone these powerful men would never notice. But she hears everything. The Russian man across from Luca speaks in rapid, venomous bursts, his words dripping with threat. The translator, some nervous kid in an expensive suit, stumbles over the translation, his voice cracking with fear. He's getting it wrong. Dangerously wrong. Luca's jaw tightens. She sees it from across the room. The way his dark eyes narrow, the subtle shift in his posture that screams danger. He doesn't know that the Russian just threatened his sister. The translator said, "business complications." But the actual words were, "your sister's beautiful face would look better in pieces." Elena's heart hammers against her ribs. She should stay silent, should finish pouring wine and disappear back into the kitchen where she's safe in her invisibility. But Luca Moretti is walking into a trap, and she can't watch it happen. "Mr. Moretti," she hears herself say, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. He's lying. Every head in the room turns toward her. Luca's eyes lock onto hers, dark, dangerous, calculating. For the first time in 6 months of working in this mansion, he actually sees her. "What did you say?" His voice is quiet, deadly. The room holds its breath. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you." Elena Rivera stood in the service entrance of the Moretti estate in Long Island, staring at marble floors that probably cost more than her entire childhood home. Her worn sneakers squeaked softly as she shifted her weight, clutching the acceptance letter from the head housekeeper. She'd gotten the job. Finally, after 3 months of rejections, of watching her sister Sophia grow weaker while medical bills piled higher, Elena had landed a position that paid enough to matter. The Moretti estate needed a live-in maid. The salary was generous, suspiciously generous, but Elena had learned not to ask questions when opportunity knocked. She just needed to stay invisible. "You're the new girl?" A woman in her 50s appeared, her gray hair pulled into a severe bun. "Mrs. Chen, the head housekeeper. Elena Rivera?" "Yes, ma'am. Your room is on the 3rd floor. Servants' quarters. You start at 5 a.m. Finish when the work is done." Mrs. Chen's eyes swept over her, taking in Elena's simple clothes, her natural black curls pulled into a practical ponytail, the exhaustion she couldn't quite hide. "You'll clean the East Wing, the library, Mr. Moretti's office, and assist with any events. Do you understand the rules?" "Yes." "Ma'am, then let me be clear about the most important one." Mrs. Chen stepped closer, her voice dropping. "Don't bother Mr. Moretti. Don't speak to him unless spoken to. Don't ask questions about his business. And for God's sake, don't stare. He values his privacy. Break that rule, and you're gone. Understood?" Elena nodded, her throat tight. She'd heard the rumors about Luca Moretti. Everyone in New York had. Youngest head of the Moretti crime family in 3 generations. Ruthless, brilliant, dangerous. The kind of man who built empires on fear and loyalty in equal measure. But she'd also heard he paid his people well and protected them fiercely. In Elena's world, that was enough. "Good. Follow me." The mansion was more fortress than home. Security cameras watched every corner. Men in dark suits patrolled the grounds with the practiced efficiency of soldiers. The doors were reinforced steel disguised as antique wood. Even the windows had a quality to them that suggested bulletproof glass. Elena's room was small but clean, a twin bed, a dresser, a tiny bathroom. Luxury compared to the studio apartment she'd been sharing with Sophia in the Bronx. From her window, she could see the manicured gardens stretching toward Long Island Sound, a view that belonged in magazines. She unpacked quickly. 3 uniforms, personal clothes, a photo of Sophia from before the cancer, and a worn Spanish-English dictionary that had belonged to her mother. Her mother. Elena's chest tightened. Mama would be horrified to see her brilliant daughter, the one who'd earned a full scholarship to NYU, who'd studied international relations and linguistics, who spoke 5 languages fluently working as a maid. But Mama had died 2 years ago, before everything fell apart. Before Elena's father gambled away their savings and disappeared. Before Sophia's leukemia diagnosis. Before Elena had to drop out of NYU in her final semester to work 3 jobs that still weren't enough. So she'd buried her degrees, changed her last name from Rivera Santos to just Rivera, and learned to be invisible. A maid didn't need a college education. A maid just needed to work hard and keep her mouth shut. She could do that. She had to. The first week passed in a blur of cleaning and careful observation. Elena learned the rhythms of the house when the guards changed shifts, when Mrs. Chen took her afternoon break, when the cook needed help in the kitchen. She learned to move like a ghost through rooms filled with priceless art and furniture that belonged in museums. And she learned about Luca Moretti, though she tried not to. He was 32, devastatingly handsome in that dangerous way that made smart women's stupid dark hair always perfectly styled. Suits that probably cost more than she'd make in 6 months, and eyes that seemed to calculate the value of everything they touched. He was also utterly alone. Elena noticed it in the small things. The way he took his espresso 3 shots, no sugar, scalding hot every morning at exactly 6 a.m. The reading glasses he wore when he thought no one was watching. The nights when she'd come to clean his office late and find him standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the sound with an expression of such profound loneliness it made her chest ache. He spoke on the phone in Italian, rapid and beautiful, his voice softening when he talked to someone named Julia. His sister, Elena, learned from kitchen gossip. The only family he had left. She shouldn't care. Couldn't care. He was a criminal, no matter how attractive or lonely he seemed. But then came the morning that changed everything. Elena was cleaning the library, her favorite room, filled with books in dozens of languages, when she heard raised voices from Luca's office down the hall. She froze, duster in hand. "I don't care what it costs." Luca's voice carried through the heavy door. "Find someone who speaks Russian, Mandarin, Italian, and French. I have a meeting in 4 hours and I need someone I can trust." "Boss, every translator in the city is already working or unavailable." Another voice, rougher. "We're trying, but try harder." Elena's heart raced. She spoke all 4 of those languages, plus Spanish, her native tongue. Her father had insisted she learn them for business before he'd ruined everything. Now they were just another piece of her past she had to hide. She should walk away. Keep cleaning. Stay invisible. But she thought about the files she'd accidentally seen last week while dusting Luca's desk. Shipping manifests that didn't match the legitimate businesses he owned. Names she recognized from news reports about organized crime. If dangerous people were coming to meet with him and he didn't have a translator he could trust. Elena found herself knocking on his office door before she could talk herself out of it. "What?" The word was sharp, annoyed. She opened the door. Luca sat behind a massive mahogany desk, jaw tight with frustration. 2 of his men stood nearby, both looking equally stressed. All 3 stared at her like she'd materialized out of thin air. "Mr. Moretti," Elena said, keeping her voice steady despite her hammering heart. "I couldn't help but overhear. I speak all 4 languages you need. I can help." The silence that followed felt eternal. Luca's dark eyes swept over her, really seeing her for the first time. She watched him take in her simple uniform, her curls escaping their bun, the nervous way she gripped the duster. His gaze was intense, calculating, like he could see through every wall she'd built. "You speak Russian?" His tone was skeptical, almost mocking. "Ja говорю свободно," she replied smoothly. "I speak fluently." Something shifted in his expression. "Mandarin?" "Washodahin liuli." "I speak very fluently." "Italian?" "Parlo correntemente." "I speak fluently." "French?" "Je parle couramment." Luca leaned back in his chair, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "What's your name?" "Elena, sir." "Elena Rivera." "Elena Rivera." He tested her name on his tongue, and something about the way he said it, the slight Italian accent wrapping around the Spanish syllables, made her breath catch. "How long have you worked here?" "1 week, sir." "And in that week, nobody thought to mention that our maid speaks 5 languages?" He glanced at his men, both of whom looked as surprised as he did. It never came up." "Sir, it never came up." A ghost of a smile touched his lips, but his eyes remained sharp. Antonio, the larger of his 2 men, stepped forward. "Boss? Background check. Full workup. I want to know everything about Elena Rivera by the time this meeting starts." Luca's eyes never left her face. Where she went to school, where she worked before, where she lives, everything. Elena's stomach dropped, but she kept her face neutral. The background check would show her manufactured history, 3 years of housekeeping and waitressing jobs, a high school diploma instead of her NYU transcripts, a cheap apartment in the Bronx she'd abandoned when she moved here. It wouldn't connect her to Elena Rivera Santos, the scholarship student who'd disappeared. She'd been careful. "The meeting is at 2 p.m., Luca said. "Can you be ready?" "Yes, sir." "And Elena," his voice dropped lower, more dangerous, "if you repeat anything you hear in that meeting to anyone, police, reporters, anyone, you'll disappear. Do you understand?" She should be terrified. She was terrified. But she met his eyes and nodded. I understand. Good. He gestured to Antonio. Brief her on what to expect. And Elena? Yes, sir. Don't make me regret this. As Elena left the office, her hands shook. What had she just done? She'd just volunteered to step directly into Luca Moretti's world, a world of violence and secrets she'd been desperately trying to avoid. But as she passed the library again, she caught a glimpse of herself in one of the ornate mirrors. For the first time in 3 years, she didn't see the ghost of privilege she'd been trying to hide. She saw herself smart, capable, worthy of being seen, even if being seen might destroy everything she'd built. The meeting took place in a private dining room at Stella Marina, one of Luca's restaurants. Antonio had briefed her in clipped sentences. Russian businessmen, potentially hostile, looking to negotiate territory. Be accurate, be discreet, be ready to leave if things go wrong. Elena had changed from her uniform into simple black slacks and a white blouse that Mrs. Chen had found for her. She looked professional but unremarkable, which was exactly what she needed. Luca arrived 15 minutes early, flanked by 4 men. He wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than she'd make in a year. And when his eyes found her across the room, she felt the assessment in his gaze like a physical touch. The background check came back, he said, approaching her. His cologne was subtle but expensive bergamot and something darker, more complex. 3 years of housekeeping, high school diploma, no priors, unremarkable. Elena kept her expression neutral, even as relief flooded through her. Yes, sir. Except you speak 5 languages. He moved closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. How does a housekeeper with a high school diploma speak 5 languages, Elena? She'd prepared for this question. My mother was a language teacher. She believed education was the one thing no one could take from you. The lie was built on truth. Her mother had believed that, had insisted Elena learn languages even when her father thought it was impractical. Luca studied her face, searching for deception. You're lying about something. Her heart hammered. Everyone has secrets, Mr. Moretti. Not from me. His voice was soft, deadly. I'm going to find out what you're hiding. Perhaps, Elena said, surprising herself with her boldness. But right now, you need me to do a job. Your guests will arrive in 10 minutes. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then, impossibly, the corner of his mouth lifted in something that might have been respect. You're braver than you look, he said. Let's see if you're as competent. The meeting was exactly as dangerous as Elena had feared. 3 Russian men arrived, their suits expensive but ill-fitting, their eyes cold and assessing. The leader, a man named Viktor Kozlov, had hands scarred from violence and a smile that never reached his eyes. They were negotiating shipping routes through Luca's ports. Elena translated flawlessly, her voice steady even as her mind raced with the implications of what she was hearing. These men were discussing weapons shipments and drug routes like they were talking about the weather. But she also noticed something the others didn't. Kozlov's Russian was too formal, too careful. He was choosing his words with precision that suggested he understood more English than he was letting on. He was testing Luca, looking for weakness. When there was a break in the conversation, Elena leaned close to Luca and whispered in English. The older Russian man understands English. He's testing you. When you offer terms, he'll pretend through me that he didn't understand the nuance, then use it against you later. Luca's expression didn't change, but his hand briefly touched her lower back, a gesture of acknowledgement that sent an unexpected shiver through her. Thank you, he murmured. Keep listening. The meeting continued for 2 hours. Elena translated, but she also watched. She saw the power dynamics, the undercurrents of violence, the careful dance of men who trusted no one. And she saw Luca command the room with quiet authority that was more effective than any show of force. He was intelligent, frighteningly so. He caught nuances in her translations, asked pointed questions that revealed he understood far more about international business than a street thug would. This wasn't just a criminal. This was a businessman who happened to operate outside the law. When the meeting finally concluded, deals made, alliances tentatively formed, Luca walked the Russians out personally. Elena stayed in the room, her legs shaky with relief and residual adrenaline. She'd done it. She'd helped a Mafia boss negotiate deals that would probably result in people being hurt, exploited, killed. The weight of that realization made her sink into one of the leather chairs. What had she become? You did well. Luca's voice startled her. She hadn't heard him return. He stood in the doorway, studying her with those penetrating dark eyes. Better than well. You saved me from walking into that bastard's trap. I just translated, Elena said quietly. No. He moved into the room, closing the door behind him. You observed. You analyzed. You protected me. He tilted his head. Why? It's my job. Your job is to clean my house. He sat in the chair across from her, suddenly close, the air between them charged with something Elena didn't want to name. You volunteered for this, knowing what I am, what I do. Why? Elena met his eyes. Because you needed help, and because invisible people see things others miss. I saw you needed someone you could trust in that room. And you think I can trust you? I think, Elena said carefully, that I just proved you can. Luca leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his face inches from hers. What are you hiding, Elena Rivera? Her breath caught. This close, she could see the complexity in his eyes, intelligence, danger, and something that looked almost like loneliness. Nothing that would hurt you, she whispered. Everything hurts me eventually. His gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. But I find I don't care. I want you to work for me. Not as a maid. As my translator, my advisor. That's dangerous. I'm a dangerous man. His lips curved in a smile that was more threat than humor. But I protect what's mine. And if you work for me, Elena, you'll be mine to protect. The possessiveness in his voice should have terrified her. Instead, it sent heat curling through her belly. I don't want to be owned. No, Luca agreed. You want to be seen. And I see you. He stood, extending his hand. Triple your current salary. Your own suite in the mansion. Protection from anyone who might want to use you to get to me. All I ask is your loyalty and your honesty. Elena stared at his outstretched hand. This was a line she couldn't uncross. Once she stepped into his world fully, there would be no going back to invisibility. No safety in being overlooked. But wasn't she already in his world? Hadn't she already crossed that line the moment she knocked on his office door? She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm, strong, completely engulfing. I accept. Good. He pulled her to her feet, suddenly close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. One more thing, Elena. Those secrets you're keeping, I will find them out eventually. But when I do, I hope you'll trust me enough to tell me why you ran from your past. Her heart stopped. How did you? People don't learn 5 languages from a teacher mother and then become a housekeeper, he said simply. They don't carry themselves like you do, speak like you do, observe like you do, unless they've been trained for something more. You fell from somewhere high, and someone hurt you badly enough that you chose to hide instead of climb back up. Tears burned Elena's eyes. In 3 years, no one had looked at her closely enough to see that. No one had cared enough to wonder. I won't push, Luca continued, his thumb stroking over her knuckles in a gesture so gentle it broke something in her chest. But when you're ready to stop hiding, I'll be here, and I'll make sure whoever made you feel like you had to disappear pays for it. It was the promise of a violent man, a criminal, someone who solved problems with force and fear. But it was also the first time in 3 years anyone had offered to protect her instead of use her. Thank you, Elena whispered. Luca released her hand slowly, like he was reluctant to let go. Your new room is ready. Antonio will take you there. Rest. Tomorrow we have work to do. As Elena left the restaurant, escorted by Antonio to a car that was nicer than anything she'd owned even in her previous life, she realized something terrifying and exhilarating. She didn't want to be invisible anymore, and Luca Moretti had just given her permission to exist. Elena's new suite was larger than the entire apartment she'd shared with Sophia. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Sound, where moonlight painted silver paths across dark water. The furniture was elegant without being ostentatious. A king bed with soft linens, a sitting area with a fireplace, and a bathroom with a tub large enough to swim in. It was beautiful, comfortable. It was a gilded cage. For 2 weeks, Elena worked as Luca's personal translator and advisor. She attended meetings with international associates, vetted documents in multiple languages, and provided insights that saved him millions in bad deals. She was good at her job, better than good, and Luca noticed. He noticed everything about her. The way she took her coffee with too much cream and sugar, the fact that she unconsciously twisted her mother's ring when she was thinking, that she had nightmares sometimes. He'd heard her cry out one night and appeared at her door in sleep pants and nothing else, concern etched on his face until she convinced him she was fine. They spent hours together. In his office, reviewing contracts, At restaurants where business was conducted over meals she'd never be able to afford on her own. Once, memorably, in the back of his armored SUV, while they traveled to meet with a Chinese businessman who insisted on doing business in a warehouse in Brooklyn. And with every hour, every conversation, every moment he looked at her like she was the most fascinating thing in his world, Elena fell deeper into dangerous territory. She was falling for Luca Moretti. It was foolish, impossible. He was a criminal who ordered people killed with the same casualness most people ordered coffee. His world was violence and betrayal and moral compromises she couldn't justify. But he was also the man who brought her chamomile tea when she worked late, who remembered she'd mentioned loving Puccini and took her to a private performance at Lincoln Center, who listened when she talked about books and ideas and dreams she'd thought she'd buried forever. He saw her, the real her, and somehow, he seemed to like what he saw. "You're thinking too hard," Luca said one evening. They were in his private study, reviewing contracts for a legitimate real estate deal, one of the few parts of his business that was actually legal. Elena glanced up from the French document she was translating, just concentrating. "No." He set down his pen and leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You get a little line right here when you concentrate." He gestured to the space between his eyebrows. "This is different. This is worry. What's wrong?" How could she explain that she was worried about caring too much for him? That every day she stayed here, she compromised pieces of herself she'd sworn to protect. "I was just thinking about my old life," she said instead. "A truth, if not the whole truth." "Tell me about it." Luca stood, moving to the sideboard where he kept expensive scotch. He poured 2 glasses, bringing one to her. "You never talk about your past." "Neither do you," Elena countered, accepting the glass. "Touché." He settled into the chair beside hers instead of behind his desk, a small intimacy that made her pulse quicken. "I'll trade you. 1 truth for 1 truth." Elena sipped her scotch, letting the burn give her courage. "Okay, but you go first." Luca was quiet for a long moment, his expression distant. "My father built this empire," he finally said. "He was brutal, efficient, and utterly without conscience. He taught me that weakness was death, that trust was liability, that the only thing that mattered was power." He met her eyes. "He also beat my mother until she stopped fighting back, stopped talking, stopped being a person. She died when I was 16, overdose. Official story was accidental, but we both know what it really was." Elena's heart clenched. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I killed him 6 months later." Luca's voice was matter of fact. "Made it look like a rival family. Took over his organization. And I swore I would never be like him." He took a long drink. "But here I am doing the same brutal work, just with better justifications." "You're not like him," Elena said quietly. "You're not cruel for cruelty's sake. You have limits." "Do I?" His laugh was bitter. "Or do I just hide it better?" Elena set down her glass and did something reckless. She reached out and took his hand. His fingers tensed in surprise, then slowly relaxed, curling around hers. "You brought me tea when I was working late," she said. "You remembered I love Puccini. You asked my opinion and actually listened to my answers. Your father wouldn't have done any of that. Maybe I'm just good at manipulation. Then why do you look so lonely when you think no one's watching?" The question hung between them. Luca stared at their joined hands, his thumb moving in slow circles against her palm. "Your turn," he said softly. "Tell me what you're running from." Elena's instinct was to deflect, to lie. But he'd given her truth raw, painful truth. He deserved the same. "My father was Miguel Rivera Santos," she said, watching Luca's eyes widen in recognition. "The investment banker who embezzled $40 million from his clients. It was all over the news 3 years ago." "I remember." Luca's voice was careful. "He went to prison. 25 years. Elena's voice shook. "But it wasn't just him who paid. My mother couldn't handle the shame. She had a heart attack 6 months after his arrest. Died before the ambulance arrived." Her throat closed. "My sister Sophia was in high school. The harassment got so bad we had to move 3 times. And I was at NYU on scholarship, 3 months from graduating. But after the scandal, everything changed. People vandalized my dorm room. Someone pushed me down the stairs. I got death threats. So you disappeared." "I became invisible," Elena corrected. "Because everywhere I went as Elena Rivera Santos, people saw $signs or revenge. They wanted me to pay for what my father did. So I became someone else. Someone no one would look at twice. Until me. Until you." She met his eyes. I knew it was risky. I knew you might find out. But when I heard you needed help, I couldn't stay invisible anymore. Not with you." Luca was quiet for a long time, processing. Elena waited for the anger, the betrayal, the calculation of how he could use this information. Instead, he asked, "Did you know about what your father was doing?" "No. I was 22, finishing my degree. I thought he was brilliant and successful and honest." Shame burned through her. "I was so stupid." "You were trusting. That's different." Luca stood, pulling her up with him. Suddenly they were close, his free hand coming up to cup her face. "Thank you for telling me. You're not angry?" "I lied about my name." "You didn't lie. You survived." His thumb brushed her cheekbone, and Elena's breath caught at the tenderness in the gesture. "And I meant what I said. I protect what's mine. That includes your secrets." "Why?" The question came out as a whisper. "Why do you care about protecting me?" Luca's eyes dropped to her lips, and the air between them turned electric. "Because," he said softly, "you're the first person in my life who sees me as more than a weapon or a wallet. You see the man I'm trying to be, not just the monster I am." "You're not a monster." "Elena." Her name on his lips was a warning and a plea. "If I kiss you right now, everything changes. You need to know that I don't do casual. I don't share. If I make you mine, it's absolute." She should run, should put distance between them, should remember that he was a criminal and she was trying to rebuild a legitimate life. But when had she ever made the safe choice? "Then make me yours," Elena whispered. Luca's control shattered. He kissed her with a hunger that stole her breath, his hand sliding into her hair as he pulled her against him. Elena melted into him, her hands gripping his shoulders, 3 years of loneliness and fear dissolving in the heat of his touch. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Luca rested his forehead against hers. "You're mine now, Elena. Mine to protect, mine to care for, mine to—" The explosion cut off his words. The windows shattered inward as the blast wave hit the mansion. Luca immediately covered Elena's body with his, crushing her to the floor as glass rained down around them. She felt him tense, heard him curse in Italian. "Stay down," he commanded, already moving toward the weapon safe hidden behind a bookshelf. "What's happening?" Elena's ears rang from the blast. "Someone just declared war." Luca's voice was cold, lethal, the voice of the killer he'd claimed he wasn't. He pulled out 2 guns, checked them with practiced efficiency. And they made a fatal mistake. "What mistake?" He looked at her, and for the first time, Elena saw the full dangerous truth of who Luca Moretti was. They threatened what's mine. The mansion was under siege. Through the broken windows, Elena could hear gunfire, shouting in Russian, the screech of tires. Luca's security team was engaging the attackers, but from the sounds of it, they were outnumbered. "The panic room," Luca said, gripping her arm. "3rd floor, behind the—" "I know where it is," Elena interrupted. "But I'm not hiding while people die for us." "Elena, those are Russian voices," she said urgently. "I can hear them coordinating their attack. They're using a 3-pronged entry strategy, front gate, south wall, and they're trying to breach the boathouse entrance." She listened harder. "Let me help. I can tell you their positions, their plans." Luca stared at her for a split second, clearly torn between protecting her and using the advantage she offered. Then he nodded sharply, pulling her toward the interior of the house, away from the windows. They made it to his command center, a room filled with security monitors and communication equipment. Antonio was already there with 3 other men, coordinating the defense. "Boss, we're pinned down on the south side," Antonio reported. "They've got at least 25 men, heavy weapons. This is Kozlov. I'm sure of it." "Why would Kozlov attack?" Luca demanded. "We have a treaty." Elena moved to the monitors, listening to the radio chatter. The Russian voices were clear to her, their tactical instructions painting a picture of the attack. Then she heard something that made her blood run cold. "They're not here for territory," she said urgently. "They're here for a person. They keep saying the translator. Luca, they're here for me." Every man in the room turned to stare at her. "What?" Luca's voice was dangerously quiet. Elena's mind raced, putting together pieces she'd been too naive to see. "The meeting 2 weeks ago. I exposed Kozlov's deception, helped you get better terms. But what if—" Her stomach dropped. "What if he was planning to use that deal to undermine you? And I ruined it. So Kozlov wants revenge by taking my translator," Luca finished, his jaw clenched. "He wants to send a message that no one helps me without paying a price. We need to get her out," Antonio said, Use the tunnels. They know about the tunnels, Elena interrupted, still listening to the Russian chatter. They have men stationed at every exit. They've been planning this for days. She turned to Luca, seeing the cold fury in his eyes. I'm sorry. This is my fault. No. Luca's hand cupped her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. This is on them, and they're going to learn what happens when they threaten what's mine. He turned to Antonio. Get Viktor Kozlov on the phone. Now. Boss. He's not going to. He will when I tell him I have something he wants more than revenge. It took 3 tense minutes for the call to connect. Luca put it on speaker, his hand never leaving, Elena's shoulder an anchor, a claim, a promise. Moretti. Viktor Kozlov's heavily accented voice crackled through. Ready to hand over the girl? No, Luca said calmly. But I am ready to offer you a deal. Call off your attack, and I'll give you the information you really want. Silence. Then, what information? The real reason our deal fell apart wasn't my translator catching your spy, Luca said. It was because I knew about it all along. I let you think you were manipulating me while I was gathering evidence of every illegal deal you've made in this city. Port manifests, bank records, names of every official you've bribed. He smiled coldly. Evidence that, if it reached the FBI, would see you in prison for life. Elena's eyes widened. He'd known the whole time. You're bluffing, Viktor said, but there was uncertainty in his voice. Am I? Tell me, Viktor, how did your weapons shipment go missing last Tuesday? The one you blamed on faulty intel? Luca's voice was silk over steel. That was me. The judge you paid off who suddenly decided to retire. Me. I've been bleeding you dry for months, and you didn't even notice. The silence stretched. Elena could hear her own heartbeat. What do you want? Viktor finally asked. Leave now. Never threaten what's mine again. And in exchange, I'll let you keep doing business in this city. You can even have the shipping deal. I'll restructure the terms to favor you. Luca's voice hardened. But if you ever come near Elena again, I'll release everything I have and watch your empire burn. Your choice. Another long silence. Then, through the security monitors, Elena watched as the Russian attackers began to retreat. Vehicles pulled away. The gunfire ceased. Viktor's voice came through one last time. We have a deal. But Moretti, your kindness is going to get you killed someday. Maybe, Luca agreed. But not today. The line went dead. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Antonio let out a breath. Jesus, boss. You've been playing Kozlov this whole time? I play everyone, Luca said. It's how I stay alive. He turned to Elena, his expression softening. Are you okay? She wasn't. She was shaking, adrenaline and fear and relief crashing through her in waves. You knew about the spy. You used me. No. Luca's hands framed her face. I suspected. Your confirmation gave me certainty. But I never used you, Elena. I protected you. Everything I just did was to keep you safe by threatening to destroy another criminal empire. By doing whatever it takes. His thumbs brushed away tears she didn't realize she'd shed. I told you. You're mine to protect. I meant it. Elena stared up at him, at this complicated, dangerous, impossible man who'd just saved her life by being more ruthless than their enemies. You're genuinely insane. Probably. He smiled, and it transformed his face into something younger, lighter. But I'm your particular brand of crazy now. Despite everything, the danger, the violence, the moral compromises, Elena laughed. It bubbled up from somewhere deep inside, 3 years of tension releasing in that moment. Luca kissed her, soft and sweet, a sharp contrast to the chaos they'd just survived. When he pulled back, his eyes were serious. No more hiding, he said. Not from me, not from yourself. You're brilliant and brave, and you speak 5 goddamn languages. The world tried to make you small, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows how extraordinary you are. Even if that brings more danger, especially then. His smile was dangerous, promising. Because anyone who tries to hurt you will learn exactly why people fear the Moretti name. It should terrify her, this possessive, violent love he was offering. But Elena had been invisible for 3 years. She'd been silent, scared, small. Luca Moretti saw her, all of her. And he was willing to burn the world to keep her safe. Okay, she whispered. No more hiding. Good. He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips. Because I have plans for you, Elena Rivera. Or should I say, Elena Rivera Santos? Neither, she said. I want to be Elena Moretti. Luca went very still. Are you? Not today, Elena clarified quickly. But someday, if you're patient. If you prove that the man I see right now is who you really are. I'll prove it, Luca promised, every single day. And as his security team worked to secure the mansion, as the first light of dawn began to break over Long Island Sound, Elena let herself believe in second chances. She'd fallen from grace 3 years ago, lost everything, become invisible. But now, in the arms of the most dangerous man in New York, she finally felt seen. The next morning, Elena woke in Luca's bed, not the guest suite, but his private bedroom. She'd fallen asleep in his arms after the adrenaline finally faded, and he'd carried her here, held her through the nightmares, whispered Italian endearments until she quieted. Sunlight streamed through the curtains. The space beside her was empty but still warm. She found him in the kitchen, of all places, making espresso in sleep pants and nothing else. The domesticity of it, this powerful, dangerous man barefoot in his kitchen, made her heart squeeze. You're staring, he said without turning around. You're shirtless. I'm allowed to stare. He glanced over his shoulder, a real smile playing at his lips. Fair point. He poured 2 cups, bringing one to her. How did you sleep? Better than I have in years. Elena accepted the cup, their fingers brushing. You? I didn't. At her concerned look, he shook his head. Not because of nightmares. Because I was watching you sleep and realizing how close I came to losing you. Luca, I need to tell you something. He set down his cup, his expression becoming serious. I've been working to legitimize parts of my business for the past year. It's slow, you can't just walk away from this life, but I'm trying. For Julia, for the future. He took her hands. Now I'm trying for you too. For us. I want to build something with you that isn't built on fear and violence. That could take years. I have time. We have time. His eyes searched hers. If you'll stay. Where else would I go? Elena whispered. You've ruined me for invisibility. Good. He pulled her close, and she rested her head against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number made her freeze. Your sister Sophia's treatment has been fully paid. Experimental therapy starts next week. Top specialists. She's going to be okay. Elena looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. You paid for Sophia's treatment? I protect what's mine, he said simply. That includes your family. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Money I would spend 1,000 times over to see that look on your face. He wiped her tears with his thumbs. She's going to get better, Elena. And you're going to have your sister back. No more choosing between survival and family. Elena kissed him with everything she had. Gratitude, love, hope, all the emotions she'd kept locked away for 3 years pouring out in that kiss. When they finally broke apart, Luca rested his forehead against hers. Move into my room, he said. Not the guest suite. Here, with me. That's moving fast. We've already survived an assassination attempt together. I think we can handle sharing a closet. Elena laughed, the sound bright and free. Okay, yes, yes, yes to moving in. Yes to building something together. Yes to this impossible, a wonderful thing we're creating. Luca swept her into his arms, carrying her back toward the bedroom. I'm going to make you so happy, Elena Rivera Santos, soon to be Moretti. You already have, she whispered against his lips. And for the first time in 3 years, Elena believed in fairy tales again. Even if her prince was a mafia boss, and their castle was built on complicated compromises. Because love, she was learning, wasn't about perfection. It was about being seen, being chosen, being protected and cherished by someone who knew all your secrets and loved you anyway. 6 weeks after the attack, Elena stood in Luca's study, their study now, reviewing documents for a new legitimate venture. A translation and consulting firm that would serve international clients, completely legal, completely hers. Luca had insisted she have something of her own, something that acknowledged her intelligence and expertise without tying her to his darker dealings. The office space was already leased in Manhattan, the business license approved, the first clients secured. Elena Rivera Santos was coming back from the dead, professionally at least. And this time, she was doing it on her own terms. You're doing it again, Luca said from the doorway. Elena glanced up, her heart doing that stupid flutter it always did when she saw him. He leaned against the frame in jeans and a black Henley, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Doing what? Thinking too hard. You get that little crease. He crossed to her, pressing his thumb gently between her eyebrows. Right here. I'm just excited, Elena said, catching his hand and pressing a kiss to his palm. This is really happening. My business. My second chance. You earned it. He pulled her to her feet, wrapping his arms around her waist. I'm just providing the capital. The brilliance is all you. Elena melted into his embrace, breathing in his scent, bergamot, and safety and home. These past 6 weeks had been a revelation. Living with Luca, really living with him. She'd discovered layers to the man the world feared. He sang off-key in the shower. He read philosophy books when he couldn't sleep. He had a weakness for terrible action movies and would argue passionately about plot holes. He called his sister Julia every Sunday without fail, his voice softening in a way that made Elena's chest ache. And he was trying. Really trying to legitimize his empire. It would take years, maybe decades, but he was building something cleaner for their future. Sophia called this morning, Elena said. The treatment is working. Her doctors are cautiously optimistic. That's wonderful, amore. Luca pressed a kiss to her temple. When does she want to visit? Next weekend, if that's okay. She wants to meet the man who saved her life. I didn't save her life. I just paid for doctors to do their job. You saved both our lives, Elena corrected, in more ways than one. Before Luca could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and Elena saw his expression shift, the softness replaced by something harder, more guarded. What's wrong? Antonio needs me. There's a situation. He released her reluctantly. I'll be back in a few hours. What kind of situation? The kind I handle so you don't have to worry about it. He cupped her face, his thumb stroking her cheek. Trust me? Elena wanted to. But something in his eyes, a shadow she recognized from the early days, made her uneasy. Always, she said anyway. He kissed her, deep and possessive, like he was trying to memorize her. When he pulled away, his eyes held hers for a long moment. I love you, Elena. I love you too. After he left, Elena tried to focus on her work, but the unease wouldn't fade. She found herself drifting to the windows, watching the driveway, checking her phone. 3 hours passed. Then 4. Finally, at nearly midnight, she heard the front door. Elena rushed downstairs, relief flooding through her, and stopped dead. Luca stood in the foyer, Antonio beside him. Both men's suits were rumpled, and there was a tension in Luca's posture that screamed wrong. But it was the blood on Antonio's sleeve that made her stomach drop. What happened? Elena demanded. Nothing you need to worry about, Luca said, his voice clipped. Go back to bed, Elena. Don't. She moved closer, seeing the way he wouldn't quite meet her eyes. Don't shut me out. What happened? Business, he said flatly. The kind we don't discuss. The kind that gets blood on your second in command? Luca's jaw tightened. Elena, was someone hurt? Killed? Her voice shook. Please don't lie to me. For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then, yes. The single word hit like a punch. Who? Someone who needed to be handled, Luca said, his tone brooking no argument. Someone who was threatening my operations, my people. It was necessary. Necessary. Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. You killed someone tonight. I protected what's mine. His eyes finally met hers, and she saw no remorse there. Only cold calculation. That's what I do, Elena. You know what I am. I thought you were trying to get out, to legitimize. I am. But that takes time, and in the meantime I still have to maintain control. Still have to make sure people understand that crossing me has consequences. He moved toward her, but Elena stepped back. Don't look at me like that, Luca said, something almost like pain crossing his features. Don't look at me like I'm a monster. I'm not. Elena pressed her hands to her face. I just need a minute. Elena, please. Her voice broke. Just give me a minute. She turned and walked upstairs, her legs shaking. Behind her, she heard Antonio murmur something to Luca, heard his sharp response in Italian, heard him start to follow her, and stop. In their bedroom, Elena sank onto the bed, her mind spinning. She'd known. Of course she'd known. You didn't build an empire like Luca's without violence, without blood. But knowing intellectually and being confronted with the reality were two different things. She thought about the man downstairs, the one who made her coffee exactly how she liked it, who held her through nightmares, who'd paid for her sister's treatment without hesitation, the same man who'd just killed someone and showed no remorse. Could she really build a life with that? Could she live with the blood on his hands, even if it never touched her directly? Luca didn't come to bed that night. Elena lay awake until dawn, and when she finally went downstairs, she found him in his office, staring at paperwork he clearly wasn't reading. "We need to talk," she said from the doorway. He looked up, and the exhaustion in his eyes nearly broke her resolve. "I know." Elena entered, closing the door behind her. "Tell me about last night. The real story." Luca was quiet for a moment. Then, "There's a man named Sal Martinelli. He worked for me for 5 years. I trusted him, gave him territory, made him wealthy." His hands clenched into fists. 2 weeks ago, I found out he was skimming from my operations. Bad enough. But worse, he was selling information about my security protocols to the Albanians. The same ones who've been trying to move into my territory for months. "So you killed him." I gave him a choice. Luca's voice was hard. "Return what he stole, give me the names of everyone he'd talked to, and leave the city. Start over somewhere else." He met her eyes. "He tried to kill me instead. Pulled a gun in my own warehouse. Antonio took the bullet meant for me, grazed his arm. He'll be fine. And I did what I had to do." Elena processed this. Self-defense. In the loosest sense. Luca stood, moving to the windows. "I could have just had him arrested, turned over evidence to the police. But in my world, that would make me look weak, would invite others to try the same thing." He turned to face her. "So I made an example. And now everyone knows you betray Luca Moretti. You don't get a second chance. That's the world you live in." "That's the world I live in," he agreed. "The one I'm trying to leave, but can't abandon overnight without getting everyone who depends on me killed." He crossed to her, stopping just out of reach. "I told you what I was, Elena. From the beginning. I've never pretended to be anything else. I know. But knowing and accepting are different things." His voice roughened. "So, I need you to tell me right now, can you live with this? With me? Because I won't blame you if you can't. I'll give you money, set you up anywhere you want, make sure you and Sophia are taken care of for life." "You'd let me go?" Elena whispered. "I'd die inside, but yes." Luca's hands clenched at his sides like he was physically restraining himself from reaching for her. "Because I love you enough to want you happy, even if it's not with me." Elena studied his face, the stark honesty there, the pain, the love. This complicated, impossible man who'd given her back her life, her sister, herself. "I'm not going anywhere," she said quietly. "Elena, I'm not naive. I know what you are, what you've done, what you might have to do again." She moved closer, taking his hands in hers. "It's not easy for me. Last night scared me because it made everything too real. But walking away from you would destroy me more than staying ever could. You deserve better than this, better than me." "Maybe." She pressed his hand to her cheek. "But I don't want better. I want you. The man who kills to protect his people and cries when he talks about his mother. The criminal trying to build something legitimate. All of you, Luca. Even the parts that terrify me." He pulled her against him, crushing her in an embrace that felt desperate. "I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway." Luca laughed, the sound raw and relieved. "I love you. Dio. I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too, even when it's complicated. Maybe especially then." They held each other as morning light filled the office, two broken people who'd found something whole in each other. But their peace was short-lived. 3 days later, Elena was at her new office in Manhattan, meeting with her first official client, a tech company needing Japanese translation for a partnership deal, when her phone buzzed with a message from Luca. "Don't come home yet. Stay at the office. I'll send a car when it's safe." Her blood ran cold. What's happening? Albanians making a move. Nothing I can't handle. Just stay there. Elena's hands shook as she excused herself from the meeting. She called Luca, but it went straight to voicemail. Called Antonio, same thing. For 2 hours she paced her office, her mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. She just told him she could handle his world, and now that world was coming for him again. Finally, her phone rang. "Luca, are you okay?" Elena demanded. "I'm fine." He sounded tired but unhurt. "It's handled. The Albanians won't be a problem anymore." "What does that mean?" "It means I made them an offer they couldn't refuse. No one died, Elena. Just a very pointed conversation about territorial boundaries." Relief flooded through her. "Can I come home now?" "Actually, I'm coming to you. I'll be there in 10 minutes. When Luca arrived at her office, he looked haggard, suit rumpled, tie loosened, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. But he was unhurt, and Elena had never been more grateful for anything in her life. "You scared me," she said, wrapping her arms around him. "I'm sorry," He held her tight. This is going to keep happening, Elena. As long as I'm still connected to this life, there will be threats, conflicts, dangerous situations. I know. I'm working to extract myself, to build legitimate businesses that can support everyone who depends on me. But it's going to take time. He pulled back to look at her. Years, probably. Can you really handle that? The uncertainty? The danger? Elena thought about her answer carefully. Because this was the moment that mattered. Not the romantic declarations, but the honest reckoning with what their life together would actually look like. I can handle it, she finally said. Because I'd rather have a complicated, sometimes scary life with you than a safe, empty one without you. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't shut me out when things get dangerous. Don't try to protect me by keeping me in the dark. I'm strong enough to handle the truth. I know you are. Luca cupped her face. I promise. No more secrets. And no more unnecessary risks. You're legitimizing your business? Then actually do it. Stop taking the violent option when there's a peaceful alternative. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe even relief. You're right. Old habits die hard, but you're right. I usually am. Elena smiled, trying to lighten the moment. You should probably get used to that. Already am, amore. He kissed her softly. Already am. That night, they lay in bed together, Elena's head on Luca's chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. I have something for you, he said quietly. If it's another designer dress, I'm going to revolt. I have enough clothes to outfit a small country, not a dress. He reached for the nightstand, pulling out a small velvet box. Elena's heart stopped. Luca, it's not that. Not yet. He opened the box, revealing a delicate gold necklace with a small pendant, a key. This is the key to every property I own, every business, every safe house, every account. He pressed it into her palm. If something happens to me, this gives you access to everything. Money to take care of yourself and Sophia for life. Information to protect yourself from my enemies. Freedom to walk away from all of this and never look back. Nothing's going to happen to you. Maybe not. But I need you to have this anyway. His eyes were serious. Because you're my partner. Elena, not my possession. And partners share everything, the good and the bad. Elena stared at the key, understanding the magnitude of what he was giving her. Complete trust. Total vulnerability. The power to destroy him if she wanted to. This is insane, she whispered. This is love. He closed her fingers around the pendant. In my world, trust like this can get you killed. But with you, I'd rather risk everything than hold anything back. Elena kissed him with everything she had, gratitude, love, absolute certainty that despite the complications, despite the danger, they were exactly where they were supposed to be. I'm going to marry you someday, she said against his lips. When the time is right, when your world is safer, I'm going to be Elena Moretti and build a life with you that's equal parts dangerous and beautiful. I'm going to hold you to that promise. You better. They made love slowly, tenderly, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and decided to fight for their impossible future. And afterward, wrapped in his arms, Elena realized something important. She wasn't hiding anymore. Wasn't running. Wasn't trying to be invisible. She was Elena Rivera Santos, brilliant translator, survivor of scandal, sister to Sophia, and partner to Luca Moretti. All of her, finally. Completely. Unapologetically. Elena stood in the conference room of her translation firm, now with 6 employees and a roster of high-profile clients that would have made her NYU professors proud. She'd just closed $1 million contract with an international tech conglomerate. Her phone buzzed with a message from Luca. Dinner at 8? I have news. Good news or bad news? Life-changing news. Be ready. Elena's heart raced as she finished her day and headed back to the mansion. In 6 months, their life had found a rhythm complicated, yes, but theirs. Luca had successfully legitimized 3 of his major operations. The violence had decreased dramatically. He was becoming the man he wanted to be. And Sophia was cancer-free, officially in remission as of last week. When Elena arrived home, she found rose petals leading from the front door to the terrace overlooking the Sound. Candles flickered in the twilight, and Luca stood by the railing in a dark suit, looking devastatingly handsome and nervous in a way she'd never seen before. "What's all this?" Elena asked, her voice catching. "Come here." She walked to him, and he took her hands, his thumbs stroking over her knuckles. 6 months ago, I told you I was working to legitimize my business, he said. As of this morning, I've completed the transfer of my last criminal operation to legal ownership. The ports, the import companies, everything, it's all clean now. Elena's eyes widened. Luca, I'm out, Elena. Really out. It took every connection I had, every favor I could call in, and more money than I want to think about. But I'm done with the old life. Tears streamed down her face. That's incredible. I did it for you, for us, for the future we're going to build. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small box. This time, it was that. Elena Rivera Santos, Luca said, dropping to one knee. You saw me when I was just a monster. You stayed when any sane person would have run. You made me want to be better, and then you helped me actually become better. He opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald-cut diamond that caught the candlelight. Marry me. Build this new life with me. Let me spend every day proving I'm worthy of you. Yes. Elena didn't even hesitate. Yes. Absolutely yes. Luca slid the ring onto her finger, then stood and swept her into his arms, kissing her with joy and relief and absolute love. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, Elena pressed her forehead to his. I love you, Luca Moretti. I love you, future Mrs. Moretti. So what happens now? Now? He smiled, and it was pure happiness. Now we get to just be us. No more danger, no more violence, no more looking over our shoulders. Just a man who loves a woman, building a life together. Sounds boring. Sounds perfect. And as the sun set over Long Island Sound, Elena realized that she'd finally found what she'd been searching for all along. Not invisibility, not safety, not the perfect, uncomplicated life, but love. Real, messy, hard-won love with a man who'd changed his entire world just to be worthy of her. The maid who spoke 5 languages had become the translator who saved the Mafia boss. And together, they'd built something neither of them could have imagined. A future, a partnership, a love story for the ages. Sofia Rivera sat in the front row of the small chapel, tears streaming down her face as she watched her sister marry Luca Moretti. Elena looked radiant in a simple white dress, her natural curls crowned with flowers, her smile brighter than Sofia had ever seen it. And Luca, the man who'd saved both their lives, looked at Elena like she'd hung the moon. I, Luca Alessandro Moretti, take you, Elena Maria Rivera Santos, to be my lawfully wedded wife, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I promise to see you, always, to protect you, fiercely, to love you, completely, for all the days of my life. I, Elena Maria Rivera Santos, take you, Luca Alessandro Moretti, to be my lawfully wedded husband, Elena responded, her voice clear and strong. I promise to challenge you, always, to stand beside you, fearlessly, to love you, unconditionally, for all the days of my life. The priest smiled. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Luca pulled Elena into his arms and kissed her like they were the only 2 people in the world. When they finally broke apart, the small gathering Sofia, Julia, Antonio, Missus, Chen, and a handful of close friends erupted in applause. As the newlyweds walked down the aisle, hand in hand, Sofia caught her sister's eye. Elena mouthed 2 words, thank you, for surviving, for fighting, for being the reason Elena had to stay strong even when everything fell apart. Sofia mouthed back, thank you, for Luca, for the second chance, for the life they all had now. That night, at the reception in the mansion's gardens, Elena and Luca danced under the stars. Happy? He murmured against her hair, deliriously. No regrets about marrying a reformed criminal? Not a single one. Elena pulled back to look at him. You're not what you were, Luca. You're what you chose to become. And that's the man I fell in love with. I love you, Mrs. Moretti. I love you too, Mr. Moretti. They kissed as fireworks exploded over the sound, beautiful, bright, celebrating a love that had survived scandal, danger, and every obstacle the world could throw at them. The invisible maid and the Mafia boss. The woman who spoke 5 languages, and the man who learned to speak the language of love. Their story had started with a single act of courage, Elena revealing herself when she could have stayed hidden. And it would continue with a million small acts of love, trust, and partnership. Forever. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.